My name is Bolaji Olabode, and I'm glad to be here this time.
Thank you.
Happy Sunday to us all.
Thank you for coming, sir. And as you all know, Talk About It is the program where we get to discuss salient issues affecting our society. And today we brought to you a beautiful topic, assessing brain drain syndrome in Nigeria. Before we dive into the topic properly, let's go on a short musical break.
Music is movement. Music is a feeling.
Music for me is love.
Alphabet is a movement. It's given us a sound that is our own.
Welcome back. You are still tuning into OSBC Radio 104.5 FM Oshogbo, Voice of the West, Nigeria, and still on the program Talk About It, a program where we get to talk about salient issues affecting our society. And before we go on the short break, I said we'll be discussing on assessing brain drain syndrome in Nigeria, popularly known as the Japa trend. You know, a lot of people, they want to leave the country. But this brain drain syndrome, I think, is actually affecting some notable sectors in our society, like the education and the health sector. And so the brain drain syndrome, I know our listeners out there, you'll be wondering what the brain drain is. Brain drain means the emigration of highly trained or qualified people from a particular country, that is, highly trained personality leaving the country for another country. So our social commentator, Mr. Bolaji Olabode, will be enlightening us more on the brain drain syndrome that we are faced with in Nigeria presently. So Mr. Bolaji Olabode, the brain drain syndrome, is it peculiar to Nigeria alone, or it is something that is happening all over the country?
All right, once again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen at home. And I want to say thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. All right, when we discuss about brain drain syndrome in Nigeria, especially pertaining to the topic in which you have asked, I want us to understand that the brain drain syndrome is not only peculiar to Nigeria, because all over the country, people emigrate and immigrate. That is, there is always a movement in and out of the country, because people travel for various reasons. So many people travel for the reason of leisure, to enjoy themselves. Some people travel for fun. Some travel to have a better life over there. So naturally, traveling out and inside the country is not only peculiar to only a nation, especially Nigeria. Especially if you look at the Article 13, 14, 15 of the United Nations Charter, which discussed about the movement of people. About 2 or 3 of them, they are closely related, because when you look at Article 13, it talks about people having the opportunity to be able to move freely, to travel freely as much as they can. Okay. Article 14 is talking about people who can escape to another country because perhaps maybe they are facing a persecution in their own country for as long. Also, Article 15 talks about people choosing their own country, the country in which they decide to stay in, and maintaining that status. So it means United Nations itself understand that people will always move in and move out of a country. So naturally, this issue of emigration or immigration out of a country is not peculiar to Nigeria. But the question to ask is, that I think to ask is, why is that of Nigeria so peculiar?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think our listeners out there are getting the articles that he's trying to explain to us. Then the brain drain syndrome, when I was going through some things, I learned that the brain drain syndrome is actually affecting some sectors in Nigeria, like the health and education system. Can you please enlighten us more on that?
Thank you once again. When we talk about brain drain syndrome affecting a critical sector of the nation, especially as it pertains to education, health, the ICT, the technology of the nation, then in that instance, we must try and understand that majorly, when the highly skilled individual, when a highly skilled individual of a nation, when they are moving out of such a nation, that is when we talk about brain drain syndrome. Because, of course, part of the factors of production are labor, capital, land, and entrepreneurship. So now, when we now have human capital in respect of labor now, as part of production and factors of production, moving out of the country, especially those ones that are highly skilled, professionals in their own field, moving out of the nation, then there is a problem for that nation. And now you mentioned health. Talking about health as a sector in Nigeria, then you start looking at what is the issue with the health sector in Nigeria. Naturally, the United Nations says there should be about a doctor to about 600 citizens.
Okay.
Now, but in Nigeria, as at present, we have just a little above 24,000 doctors in Nigeria. Which means the number of doctors that are present in Nigeria right now cannot even take us to the length in which we are about to go. So that means Nigeria is at a shortage of doctors in Nigeria. And even out of these 24,000, only about 10,000 of them rather, are residents doctors. So it means there is a problem in the educational and the health sector.
Thank you very much. Now, before we continue, let's go on a short musical break. Welcome back. Here still on OSBC Radio 104.5 FM Oshogbo, Voice of the West, Nigeria. Mr. Abolaji Alabode, this brain drain syndrome that we are actually discussing right now, what does it say about the country's economy as a whole?
Now, when we talk about the economy of a nation, especially as it pertains to brain drain syndrome, the one that is peculiar to Nigeria is even a double tragedy. And what do I mean by this? Because in Nigeria, people are not only traveling because of the purpose of moving out of the country.
Okay.
As much as we are having human capital flights, we are also having capital flight itself.
Wow. Because
the major reason why people are traveling in Nigeria is because they want to really escape, not because they are traveling for leisure. Okay. Not because they are traveling to just explore another land. They are tired of staying here because of the economic situation. And the problem now is this. Now, somebody wants to travel out of the country. The only opportunity for the person to travel out is for the person to be able to go and study in another country. So as much as the person is moving out with all the skills, professionality and all those stuff, he has to labor hard to earn enough money that will be able to sustain him over there. I have a friend in which many of them spend up to like 5 million, 2 million to process their visa to be able to study in another man's land. So the double tragedy is people are moving out, and again, the money in which people are laboring hard to earn here are also moving out because they are spending it in another country. That is a problem for the economy in itself. So we have to start looking at that angle and see that our own problem here is not only about people moving out, it's about people moving and the money also moving in itself. So that's a problem for the economy because the youths of the nation that have the capacity to be able to invest both their energy, their time and their resources in the economy are nowhere to be found. They are moving out. So therefore, that is a problem for the economy. The innovation hub, the technology hub is not thriving anymore in Nigeria because people are ready to move out at any point in time.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. We are just saying people are moving out. I think there are some factors that are contributing to people like professionals leaving the country. What are the factors or reasons that professionals leave the country that train them for other nations?
Thank you very much. Now, one of the factors that is affecting, of course, when people want to move out of the nation, there are about two factors.
Okay.
Number one is the pull factor, and another one is the push factor. What is pushing them out and what is pulling them out of the country also. These are the two factors that we must first of all look into.
Okay.
But by the time we now look at those things, then you start looking at the situation of the country itself. In a situation whereby a worker cannot guarantee that his own job has security, then the person is at always taking risk. When you wake up in the morning, you are at risk of losing your job the next day. Because you holding on to your job is majorly determined by the political party in power.
Yes.
Another party can come tomorrow and say no more, go back to your house. So at this point in time, people are scared. They don't have the confidence enough to be able to invest their time, their energy in the country. And like I used to say, patriotism does not eat stone. Patriotism will definitely eat something. So when we look at this kind of situation whereby there is political instability, holding on to your job is determined by whether there is a political party in power or another one is coming. These are the major issues. When people can invest in the economy and they expect zero profit to come back, people will definitely run. Because in Nigeria of now, if you see, we only have two classes. Majorly in every society, in every society, there should be three classes of people: the poor, the middle class, and what? And those people who are affluent, who are rich. But there is no more middle class in the country. And those people who could work very hard to earn their hard-earned money would definitely save enough to be able to move out. So these are the critical areas that are affecting people that they have to move out. There is no job security. The economy is in mess. To the extent that you cannot even say when you invest 20 naira, you are going to get 22 naira.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, sir. And I believe these things have consequences. The brain drain on Nigeria economy